Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Or actually, I shouldn't even say good morning, just welcome to the New Media Show. It's morning for me. And we've got just Rob and I today going solo. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Rob. How are you?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you too. I'm doing fine, and yeah, we're going solo today, and we like to do that now and then, just because when we have a guest on, it oftentimes is all about the guest, and so it's good to connect with the audience, and I think we have pretty good listenership when we just do it between us. So
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting dynamic. They come to listen to the Todd and Rob or Rob and Todd show.
yeah,
But you and I were just talking just a little bit about a few things before we started the show today, and I'm double checking things here and making sure everything is up and running the way it's supposed to be. And
hmm
let me hit this.
you
Uh,
are where it happens. I have to
y-
say, it's like all I do is call in via Skype, and I have my own mixer and my own mic here and everything, as you can see, and but Todd does all the magic.
yeah, and sometimes Todd forgets some of the magic, so it's okay. We're all good.
Lot
But
of
anyway,
parts. Yes.
we were talking before we started the show today that there seems to be what I've been doing over the last couple of days is getting ready to go out to the Consumer Electronics Show. So that means updating some websites, getting some things kind of just ready and updating the social stuff. And I find that theme developers, and I have to give them an A for for effort, but sometimes the execution on how they put things together, I really wonder if they're really podcasters. They're obviously not podcasters, and they're
Yeah.
so focused on certain trends that they don't really understand the basics. And one of the things I was running into was basically I was in an email exchange is still going back and forth. I'm like, no, 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 no. My video file is a podcast link. I don't put it on YouTube and put an embed on the page. The podcast is the MP4. There
Yeah.
is, and that, I don't necessarily say that baffles anybody, but it's just one of those things that I'm like, no, we do have the ability here to, for better words, deliver this media via CDN. That's a miracle.
Yeah. Exactly. That's something new,
Yeah,
Todd.
that's something new. And
Yeah.
another thing is that I don't want a YouTube embed on the website because people click. Well, they'll tend instead of hitting play, they'll hit the YouTube link,
Logo.
knowing take them to the YouTube page, and I lose them. They're gone.
Yeah.
So bounce rates are like 100 times higher when you have a YouTube embed on your web page, at least for our stuff, versus having our own player there. And when they get done with the player, there's another option for them to play the next video. So I don't want them leaving the site. That's been part of our, our the strategy we've done as far as SEO goes as well.
Sure. Well,
So
Todd. Let's back up a
sure,
little bit. You talked about themes
yeah.
for podcasting for WordPress. Is there a concerted effort there? I know it's an area that's been really weak. For the 10 years that podcasting has existed, there really hasn't been too many podcasting or really good kind of audio video themes. Because I've searched for them many times. I know that there's some out there, but
Yeah,
they're like one or two here and there that are kind of like half baked and
yeah.
okay to some extent. Are you putting forth a significant effort towards trying to get some of those created that are integrating your technology and creating a better experience?
Well, I'm just trying to use some other themed. I've always used themes that Angelo's made for me. And for
Okay.
example, the theme that I'm using on TPN.TV, and I'll just bring it up. This is a theme we've been using for a while, and this was really totally my idea. I wanted to have the ability to have something on top that allowed me to scroll through the different videos that were available, and and it's actually it's not working completely the way it should, but oh, it is. It's moving in fours. I have
hmm
this one pinned to the front, so it's staying here. But I'm being presented because I've got two pinned. Those are two are not changing, but this would normally rotate by four, and then I could just click on and I would go right into the article, and I'd go right into the post. So that was, at least my idea of having the ability to show off more than just, a single post on the front page. There's nothing like this to this date. There's nothing like this that exists. We're the only ones that have it, and and this is a theme that we built
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago, and yet it's been updated a few times to be more responsive design so that you can scrunch it, but it's not perfect. And quite frankly, we just, I've got plenty of ideas, but what ends up happening is the theme developers want to, um, okay, there's a well-known theme out there called Genesis, and it's pretty expensive to buy the Genesis theme, and it's a building block that a lot of theme developers are building upon. So it's basically you've got this basic architecture, and then you have to buy that, and you have it on your in your themes within WordPress. And I say expensive; it's under $100, I think, if you just buy that theme only. And then there's like these sister themes that sit on top of it. That is
Yeah.
the actual theme you use on your website, and or daughter themes, I think that's what they call them.
Yeah,
And
and those cost extra, right?
right,
To
so
get.
those cost money too. So you have to buy two themes to really get one. But they make it easy then once you get it set up. And a lot of the theme developers have got it so that you can pick your colors. You don't have to be a web developer to make your site look the way you want it to look. And I applaud that. I think that's fantastic. Um, but then some of the execution of how the themes work sometimes just pull my hair out. Um, added all this extra stuff. The buttons are too big. We're in this mode now of having huge buttons. Now I understand why, and
Mhm.
we even have it on the TPN TV, or actually on the TPN site. We've got these large now subscribe to iTunes or via RSS on the sidebar, where it used to be just a tiny little icon.
Yeah,
Well,
it's because of touch, right?
it's
Yeah.
because of mobile, right?
Yeah.
It's because
Yeah.
people have to touch it.
Yep.
So, and for me, from a aesthetic wise, it drives me insane. I understand why it has to be that way, but I think there's some folks, the Epidentity folks, are trying really hard to come out with some themes, podcast specific themes, and but most of them are audio centric. They're really built strictly for audio. There's not too much stuff video, and then everything else. Luckily we actually made a decision in PowerPress 6 to uncomplicate the player a little bit. We're having so many troubles with people's themes. Not a lot, but there are a few here and there.
Hmm.
So we basically said, okay, let's make it so that the default WordPress media elements.js player is the player we put on the page. So if it's broke, we can say, hey, that's the standard WordPress media elements JS player. There's nothing in there that is different. It's not half baked. It's not wrapped in new CSS. It
Yeah.
is the player. And if you have a problem, you basically are. It's a, we've done nothing.
Yeah, it's the new theme that you've added wasn't compliant, right?
Right. And so, and a lot of people, when they're developing themes, they don't think about people putting audio and video. They think about blogging. They
Yeah.
think about images and that type of placement. So, um, yeah, it's just, I think there's an opportunity here. And, I've been talking with the developer, and it did just, the quick email. He gave me admin access to the blog so he can go in and look what's going on, so I can, I'm trying to, and we'll make progress over time. I have no doubt we'll make progress over time, but we just need to. And again, I found when I was in the Navy, one thing that I learned quickly about a software process was that I was involved in from the ground up the development of a GUI, and when you have the same 4 or 5 people in the meeting every time, you all progress down a road and for a a layout and how things are going to work when you click and how it's going to do this and that.
Yep.
But you add 3, 4 more people, 5 or 100 to that process, and then you know, opinions are like assholes because everyone has one, right? So it turns into this, and, no, I want this way, no, I want that way, no, and it's hard to please everybody. So I'm in that mode right now where I'm the hard to please guy.
Yeah, and it could be said about the IEB working group too. That there's a lot of
Oh,
cooks in the kitchen, right?
a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I totally see your point. I mean, UI and experiences and what people think works on a page is as varied as there are people on the planet.
Right,
So there's some people get it right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about usability, right?
right, right.
Can people find what they're looking for, and that's the secret sauce that everybody's trying to solve. But it's difficult. It's not easy to do.
And let's be frank. Putting a video on a video page is not complicated. People see that they click play.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Yep.
don't want it buried 3/4 down the page below the fold where they see the first video.
Yeah.
That's if you've got a video podcast, you want them to be able to engage the video very, very quickly. You don't want to lose them. You don't want them going off to YouTube. You want them right on your website. So when they
Yep.
see, after they watch the first one, they're like, man, that was a great, in our case, 5-minute interview with X company. And let's look at the next one he's got.
Yeah, I
And
think that a lot of probably blog template developers think text first,
right,
and any kind of multimedia sits at the bottom of the post.
right,
I mean, I've seen a lot of sites that have that designed to them. So it's like, if you're a blog, you think text first.
right.
And this other stuff versus what you're talking about putting video and audio at the top, right? And having that as the priority.
And I'm not, and I like, from a Google perspective, and also an aesthetic reason, is I want them to read the text too on the website. All of our, you look at some of. Let me bring up one of our. Let me bring an interview up I did last year, and show you the format that I have been really through and through with. Okay, so here is. This is an interview I did with Ford. When you land on that page, and again, this is scrunched down so I can make it show better for those of you watching the video. But if you're on a regular screen, what do I have? I have content, sponsor,
And then the videos below.
and then the videos. But, the reason is I want them to, focus on both. They can, oftentimes,
Yeah.
people will start the video and they'll read the article at the same, they'll read, and sometimes they don't, but the goal here was definitely this part here was for Google,
Yeah.
and this part was for the viewer, and that has been a very successful strategy, to stick
Though
with.
I see, putting that video up above is also something I've seen more and more sites do, and
Well,
then
that's
the text is below.
well,
But
that's what we did with this site, with New
yeah,
Media Show, is we put the video on top.
yeah,
So, I don't know what's more effective. And I guess that would be a good study to do, is to determine click-throughs on how many more views, A versus B testing, which a lot of themes offer now too.
yeah. That is true. That is
Yeah.
true.
But, I just, we have not, over the years, just, I think when maybe I can count on half a hand, the number of folks that have come to us and said, "Hey, we want to integrate a little better with you. Can you, tell us, what are some good practices?" And really, we've had to make, everything in the plugin at least pretty theme friendly, because if you don't, we would spend all our time answering support tickets. Why isn't my player working?
Yeah.
Um, And fortunately, knock on wood, with the release of PowerPress 6, we've had none of those come back. That is, I think we had one. That is incredible for a major update, and I think it's because we basically said,
It's
okay,
good.
let's unencumber as much as we can
Mhm.
any elements of design and make sure we play, put the default player up there. And also starting to really force people off Flash. Um,
Yeah.
we had to put out an update because one of the Flash players that we embedded ended up having a security vulnerability. That's a second time in a year, and Angela and I talked about it, and the team talked. And I said, just rip them out, and it took us 2 extra days to release the plugin because we ripped all the Flash players out except for one, and that
Oh,
one's
so you still have one.
just
Okay.
one. Yeah, we still have one because we thought, well, and basically we're going to tell them this is going away next. There's no reason
Well,
to run a Flash player on a website anymore.
yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, so were you concerned about getting complaints that people would use that flash or
There's
want
that,
to use a flash player?
yeah, that one pixel out player seems to be still really popular with a certain segment of the podcasting community. So we're talking about some ways to mitigate that when we do a switch out. So
Hmm. So if you upgrade and you remove it, does that mean that those players go dead in the plugin?
no, they do. What we've done is we've if someone else had one of those four Flash players selected, then we push them over to
To a different
a
one?
different one. Yeah, we set
Okay.
it for them until they go into their settings for the first time again. We say, okay, you need to repick, but we force it upon the website for the first, so they don't their player just doesn't disappear
Yeah.
off the blog,
Yeah.
which it would have been dumb. That would raise a lot more complaints. But yeah, Angela and I talked about it last week. The biggest thing people are trying to wrap their head around that right now is the SEO stuff we baked in, which is really I've been doing some testing. It's really, if you're using PowerPress, you better be using the SEO settings.
It's re-
It's
it's
helping.
good, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. From a findability in iTunes, it's really good. So, but anyway, we talked about PowerPress 6 last week. We don't have to talk about it today. But I just, the template thing. I wish I can be honest with you, Rob. I wish I was a web designer. I can write stuff out on a piece of paper. I can draw what I want.
Yeah.
Then getting someone to implement that exactly the way I want it usually is thousands of dollars. So, but I just wish I was my own. I wish I was. I don't have the time, but I'd love to be my own, be a theme developer.
Hmm. Yeah. So what's your thought? I mean, moving into 2015,
Oh,
I think talking about what's next might be a
yeah.
good topic. And it appears that there's a lot of people thinking that 2015 is going to be a great year for podcasting and on-demand audio, and we should probably talk about that. Do we think that podcasting is just going to continue its steady climb, or is there going to be some true renaissance that happens this year based on more of these music platforms integrating spoken word content? And I I think that there's an opportunity there, and then monetization is it seems to be hitting a growth curve with buyers, and I don't know. I mean,
I think
what
the growth curve,
topics?
the growth curve's happening with big shows. The growth curve's not happening with the small shows.
Yeah. Well,
From the
Serial's a good example, right?
Yeah, and the advertisers are coming in. They want the big shows, but they're going to run out of big shows real quick. That inventory will be gone, and then they'll want more.
Yep.
So, we're already getting inquiries for 2015, obviously for Q1. Matter of fact, some of that stuff is already in place. But um, I think what's going to happen is that the growth is going to continue. Everyone said, "Oh, it's been a," yeah, I kind of, and I hate to say it, I use the word too, renaissance. We got to hit a renaissance of news reporting.
There you go.
The renaissance in listening really hasn't changed. Now, we did we're pulling some stuff out for the IEB, and we know we actually had a little surprise ourselves on growth rate, and there was a year recently that was pretty flat, but beyond that, the curve has been up on a pretty steady percentage, and I don't have it in front of me what that number is, but Angela and I worked hard to extrapolate how many people are listening to podcasts on an annual basis, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. Uh, our hypothesis, let's just leave it at that. Let's leave it as a hypothesis, is based on just what we know our market share is, and based on what iTunes says are active podcast. And again, there's some wiggle factor in there because they say there's 275,000 shows. How many of those are active?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to probably say under 200.
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, we came up with a pretty big number, and we were actually kind of surprised. But the thing that we really looked at was, and we've talked about on this show many times, Rob, is that iOS is so dominant.
Yeah.
So freaking dominant in podcast listening that if we could engage the Android community,
Yep.
and that's kind of my mission right now, is to engage. And if anyone listening to this, if you're not engaging the Android listeners, if there is life after iTunes,
Yeah.
if you're not engaging the Android listeners, that's where your growth is. There's literally 100 to 200 to 300% growth potential. Well, if you look at worldwide on the number of Android devices versus iOS, it's pretty public what that number is. It's significantly more. Now, in the United States, probably not as big a spread, but this thing could get blown out if we could just get the Android listeners on and find a better way for them.
You're right, Todd. We've been talking about this for a while, and how do we do that? I think that the way that's really been proven is to have a first party service on Android that is part of the Google Play Store. I think that's how it would happen the fastest. A third party app is going to make some progress. Like a Stitcher or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say Spotify adds podcasting, that'll add a little bit. Maybe Pandora adds podcasting, that'll add a little bit more. I think that's probably more likely what'll happen, is that the usage of spoken word audio is going to creep into Android over time as the market grows. But you're exactly right. I don't know that there's a huge amount of growth left in iOS.
Now, one thing that we did was we focused this time because, let's be frank, we probably got 80 or 90% of the podcasters using our plugin. We really worked on the subscribe function to really make it bold and out there and give these other platforms equal billing. And one thing that we did is we basically made the look at this for this show here, the new media show. We've got iTunes, RSS. Then we tell them Beyond Pod for Android, Podcast Republic for Android. We basically are trying to promote the Android users. Hey, there's an app for that. Let me go out and get it. Now here's the insanity, Rob. None of these Android podcasting apps have implemented one-click subscription. It's two-click. Do you know they can do one-click? It wouldn't be too hard to do one-click.
No, it wouldn't be.
It would not be hard.
No.
To do one-click. If they could ever get that through, and give me a brick. Bam, 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 bam,
Yeah.
And they need to, make it as easy as possible. Whoever does that's going to win on the Android side. But our hope is, and the reason we picked those two apps is not necessarily, we did because they were free, and number two, because they don't jam a lot of advertising in the user experience.
Hmm.
So, we've tried to try to, show a couple of offerings here that will help. But I don't know. I just hope, my hope is the podcasters will basically talk about Android more for 2015. And we should, maybe that's what we need to say. 2015 is the year of the Android for podcast. Instead
Yeah.
of in the year of the, what is it, this coming up in the Chinese New Year, I can't remember what they switch over to, but
Yeah, it's an aspirational reach out, right? To
yeah,
try and grow that. And
right.
I think I agree with you. If that can be done, if we can figure out a way to all work together to build that. I mean, I think that the listeners are there. I
Yeah,
just don't think that those many of the people that use Android really know how to do it on Android. I mean,
right.
it's and what app to get and those kind of things. I think it's a big part, and that's why iOS has been so successful with
Yep.
podcasting is because it's integrated into a Apple experience, and
Comes on
people
it.
have known it's there, and it's been in iTunes for years and years. And I think that could be a little bit of a challenge for Google if they did choose to get into it. Is the fact that you know Apple certainly had the advantage early on of having iTunes, which was so ubiquitous
Yep.
in people's usage that it
And
just
discussions.
yeah, and how to get the attention of those Android users at this point is a little bit of a challenge. Now it's going to have to be driven by content, I think, but the experience is going to have to be there so it's easy. Just like what you
Yeah.
said, one-click subscription. It's going to have to be a catalog that's complete. It needs to be curated and managed, and just like what I did at Windows Phone and Zune and stuff for many years, there needs to be a person there that actually does that.
There's almost this cult following right now in the podcasting space that you have to, and it's. I mean, I see posts on it every day where people are talking about, I got to get new and noteworthy, got to get new and noteworthy, and they have all these secret formulas, and they're almost at a, and then when they get it, I'm a new and noteworthy, and I'm like, I bet your subscribers didn't go up,
Yeah.
you know, you, and there's this obsession. I mean, absolute, outright obsession with being a
Yeah.
new and noteworthy, and and I followed I don't know if you follow the podcast movement mailing group or a Facebook group, but there was, I mean, a 120 comment thread about individuals who are purposely Twitter spamming to build numbers, to build just so someone would just click on a file, to to get another play so that it somehow gets them, they get these. It's insane. Some of the stuff that's. I mean, I was astounded at the lengths that some of the black hat tactics are taking place by a certain segment of podcasters, and that's got to stop. Just every 5 minutes, a tweet going out on one of multiple tweet accounts. That's gonna hurt us if nothing else. And another thing I was shocked about, and I probably really pissed somebody off because someone actually called me a Scrooge. Um, but someone basically put this big, beautiful banner up, 1 million downloads, and been in the top 10, and whatever. And I was like, oh, this must be a pretty good show. And I went to the website, and in front of the website wasn't too bad. I clicked on their podcast episode, and the audio started to play, autoplay. And I was like, really? X gone. And the comment I made on the person's Facebook page was, you've got autoplay turned on. And just so you know, that's very frowned upon and can inflate podcast listen numbers. I said, you just got a free listen from me by loading your page.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really matter. Well, if I had autoplay turned on Geek News Central, I'd have 35,000 to 40,000 free plays every day. So
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like, well, that's what my listeners want. Well, I know that's beep. That
Yeah,
is.
that's not true. Autoplay is never good for long-term engagement.
So I irritated the person so much that they pulled their post down. and I have to stop doing that. But it was just I just it's just it's this kind of stuff that I see happening that stop people, please, please.
Well,
I
it's
don't I,
people
and I
trying to, it's people trying to, do anything and everything they can to be successful
yeah
and don't really think about what they're doing.
right and I again it's sustain superior content. That's what.
Yeah.
So I just hope that we can and I actually I was so irritated about this and multiple things and I maybe I made a little bit of it was a little bit of Scrooge before Christmas here, but I went and registered the domain podcast code of conduct.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, Todd. Let's talk about that. What were you trying to accomplish with that?
Well, and you got to be careful here because it can't be just Todd's opinion. Because if it is, then it's going to be same type of thing I ran into with people naysaying about the podcast awards. But um,
Yeah.
maybe 10 or 12 or 5 or whatever the number is. Thou shall not autoplay.
This is a reaction to a frustration that you see in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One will not Twitter bomb, and just and it doesn't have to be like these rules. I just want people to let's just have some common guide, because if we don't, this is what's going to happen. The IAB, they're going to say, well, what about these folks at autoplay? Well, guess what? We can't trust plays on web pages. We can't count those.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen then? A few individuals are going to ruin the party for everyone.
Well, that code of conduct needs to be part of the IEB's kind of recommendations too.
So I have not started any list. So I've got the domain, and it really is born out of frustration to some of the things. And of course, what I say is bad is not what that other person thought. That was just fine, and I have to respect that's their site. They do what they want. But then he also told me he had an advertiser, and I was like, oh my god, and and I made the comment, if I was the advertiser, I would want refunds on those autoplays.
Mm-hmm.
So that just I think there has to, and I don't like rules. We're supposed to be this free spirited group, right?
Well, yeah. That's been good and bad at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's pushed the envelope on what people would do in the podcasting community. There's a lot of experimentation that's been going on in the space since going back to the early days.
Yeah.
People are trying new things, but I think just like what you're saying, I think as people try things, things work or they don't work, right? Or they piss people off, or people enjoy it. I think that there is a clear line that can be said for each of these practices, and I think it's going through that, just like what you said, and making a list of the things that work and the things that, don't even put up there the things that don't work, but
right.
maybe that's a separate website.
Yeah. So I don't know, and and it's it's a can of worms, because I know the reaction I'm going to get. So what do? Do I ask 20 of my best friends that I trust in the space to say, send me your list, and then we mull that over and come up with something? And I could come up with a list, but I don't want it to be Todd's list. I've never done just Todd's stuff, so I don't think that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to get a submission from a group of experienced podcasters that can help define that.
Yeah, because it again, it's whatever you come up with, no matter what.
It's not going to be liked by everybody.
No. No. And the internet marketing folks are the ones doing some of the crazy stuff right now. And actually, no, it's trickling into regular serialized content. It's not just the internet marketers that are doing some of the stuff now.
Well, it could kind of pull the blanket off of a lot of practices that people think work, but actually don't.
Right. Well,
Uh,
and if they think they're getting short-term gain on it, if their Twitter bombing is working, and
yeah.
it's, of course, it's that rank, you're going to get a little higher click-through and more times you put something up, but is that really the person that is going to be engaged and listening? You
Yeah.
know, and especially if you're Twitter bombing a URL to the media directly, or Twitter bombing the page loads and the page loads and it autoplays. Well, bots can cause an autoplay
Hmm.
if they don't have a good measurement system in filtering the bots out from those autoplays. Then so yeah, I don't
Todd,
know.
have you been playing around with the Twitter media cards
I
thing yet?
it's on my list. Have you?
Yeah. I played around with their SDK and kind of created one.
Oh,
But one of the things is that you have to operate it off of a secure socket
oh, yep,
connection.
yep. We've got that now. So
So and a lot of people don't have access to that. Um,
if they're hosting with us, they do.
do they?
So yep,
Okay.
yeah,
So you have to have that as a baseline.
yep,
And I just, there's been some A/B testing that has been done on Facebook and a little bit of Twitter around actual engagement
yep.
of content, right? And what has been found so far is that there's not very much content engagement on Facebook.
What
So
do you go to? Who goes to Facebook to? Those videos, those little short videos that run in GIFs and stuff. That's the extent of my engagement on Facebook. I
yeah,
never.
exactly. And so there's been this desire over the last year, and I've been feeling the pressure myself to have embedded audio players in Facebook, right?
Yep,
There's a few players that are doing it today,
yep,
SoundCloud and Spotify and a few others, and I've heard that well, and Lipson is doing it as well, uh, but I've heard a few other significant players are moving that direction. But all of the A/B testing that I've heard about or seen or anything tells me that you can do that, but you're only going to get maybe less than a minute of engagement.
oh,
And so if you think of it as a sampling
right.
tool, I maybe there's some promise there, but you're not going to get long-term listening off of Facebook. People are just flipping through too many posts, and I think it is a little bit common sense.
Yeah,
And I believe it's the same with Twitter,
yep,
though maybe a little different. I think you could get maybe a little longer engagement on Twitter, but I think all those need to somehow connect with an app or a longer form player that a subscription can reside in until Twitter or Facebook integrate that kind of functionality, right? And make it more like a podcasting app experience, right? I just don't believe people are going to focus on using those social networks as a primary consumption environment for spoken word audio.
you know, I use it for a announcement and come to my website,
Yep.
and that is how I build engagement. I don't even imagine. Of course, again, I'm trying to think of the average Facebook user. Um, I'm just, what do? I hit the news feed, it refreshes. I hit it 10 times a day, and I scroll through what's new, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
So, and plus, it's just the same reason why on websites why we have a pop-out player, because website listening, it's easier now that more people are used to using tabs. But when we started, a lot of people weren't using tabs.
Tabs
And
didn't exist. I mean, you had to
right,
launch a whole nother player or I mean, a whole nother browser.
right. So, and that was one of the reasons why we did the play in a new window function, where it basically would open up and
Yeah.
it would start playing in the new window, because we knew people were going to come to a website and they were going to bounce.
Yep.
And now that they can click play and just for example, let's go back and click play, and I can just go on to the next link. I'm good. I don't have to. That pop-up player is not as critical. Matter of fact, I love it now because on most browsers you can see which tab is playing audio.
Hmm.
Because how many times you've loaded a page and they've started running an ad on you, and you're like, oh, which tab is that? And you reach over there and click and close it because they're playing. They've waited 3 minutes. They said, okay, let's get an ad in here and make some money.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, I am curious as I think about the next year and the year after. All this attention, what's going to be the result, right, of all this recent buzz around podcasting, right?
Yeah,
Because the history has been is that whenever there's a significant amount of buzz, that gets big companies' interest, right?
yeah,
Uh, the larger companies like to ride on trends, right?
yep.
So I mean, we talked about Google a little bit. The topic of Microsoft could come up again. Apple, I believe, is over time is going to probably invest more in podcasting. So I think you get CarPlay and the Android Auto
Yeah.
is coming. So you can kind of see where there's a kind of a positioning of the market, right, where these bigger players could get more engaged. And I just wonder if if it's going to happen and how long it's going to take. I'm trying to make contact with as many of the folks involved myself, just like kind of you are, that may have a say in those kind of things, to kind of encourage them.
One of
um,
one of our strategies this year um, is company since we've had a lot of awareness, we've had a lot of articles come out. I my focus, even starting right off here, going to Vegas, is I completely revamped. When we do interviews with companies, we give them I call it a media kit, and it's basically my mom calls it propaganda. It's a two-page document that tells them how they can engage with us more.
mhm.
And there's actually a special offer on the second page. It actually has engagement steps. So this year, I completely reworked that document to highlight this is what's going on in space. This is why you need to be involved. This is how we can help you. So that when we leave Vegas, I've got 250 of those bright orange envelopes, hopefully not in some trash can somewhere, but in the exhibitor's pocket's going to go home after a week or two and go through this stuff, which we hope, we're going to get a certain amount of those thrown in the trash, but
Sure.
um, at least they're going to open it. And don't worry, I'm going to follow up with emails with them with that same exact document. But it's going to basically say this is how you get involved in the podcasting space, and this is going to be one of the ways that we try to educate companies that there is the ability for them to get you know advertising and get promotion within the shows. And fortunately, one thing that still holds true, especially in the blogging space, people still sell their souls for a cup of coffee. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, let me show you something that was sent to me, and let me see, make sure I don't. Let me cover up the company. So this was sent in the mail to me the other day. The company's expecting me to do a review. Now all it is a car plug with two USB ports.
USB. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So these are available in every store in the country has these.
Yeah.
And this is probably $10. I get stuff like this. Did I just click a button by mistake? I don't think so. I get stuff like this every day. Drives my wife crazy. Geekness. I have a Geekness Central Reviews, the address. This stuff comes in every day. Stuff like this. Now, sometimes it's better. Oh, where's it at? It's on the charger.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, Todd, having one of those that has two USB ports on it, because there's so little power that comes through that thing. Through
They're 2.1 amps.
yeah,
But then again, other companies are smart. So Sprint
yeah,
and Samsung sent me a Edge, their new Edge to test. I'm going to take this to Vegas with me. So
uh-huh.
this is in a 3 week loaner. I have to send it back in 3 weeks. I don't get to keep it. So am I being bought for the price of a cup of coffee? Absolutely. And I'm going to do a review, and this is going to help drive traffic to my website, and I'm going to talk about it. We're talking about it on the show right now.
Yep,
So many of the vendors don't need to buy advertising because
they're getting freebies.
freebies
Yep.
and bloggers just mommy bloggers. Oh my God, the stuff that goes to them is insane. So all the guys, Don Bain, Gadget Professor, you don't even want to see the baskets of stuff that he gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to the point now where I do not promise a review. They send me stuff, and if it's and I'll where's my review? I'm sorry, you just sent me a. How do I write a review on a two port USB charger and say, oh, it's the greatest thing ever? You can't.
Yeah. Well, there's so many of them out there, and
Right.
actually, those usually don't work very well from my experience. But
And actually, I got two of them from two different companies within a week.
yeah,
So, that doesn't pay the bills. So, we're going to try to, ultimately, we want companies to advertise, to move product, build awareness for them. So, again, or at least, and this is, I've diverged here, but the goal is to get more companies engaged, and we've just got to train them now, what this space can deliver.
yeah, and I also think that there's probably an opportunity, I think, over time for podcasts to be an advertising medium for premium apps. Um, it just it's starting to happen a little bit, but as the app marketplace gets more competitive too,
Right.
and as bigger businesses are being created around apps, I just think podcasting is a terrific advertising medium for cross promoting apps. It just hasn't happened yet. And then the other one is brand advertisers, which is the really
Right.
big
Big spenders.
it's the big spenders. So that's, I think, in 2015, I believe that's going to be and should be a key focus of the bigger part of the podcasting industry is how do we engage those folks at a deeper level, because then it starts moving us away from direct response and those kind of things, which are very very difficult advertising relationships. So the whole brand advertiser part is a difficult one also. So,
Yeah.
and I do think that standards in the space need to be in place before all those guys are going to jump in with both feet. And the IAB is certainly at the beginning stages of that, and while at the same time the brand advertisers are coming into the space, and hopefully what they see is what they like. But I think that there's some question marks about you know that, because I don't believe that the industry really has its act together quite yet.
One thing we should talk about, Rob, is the podcaster stuff and how everyone always says it's so hard to do this.
Oh yeah,
And be quite frank, for a non-techie, it probably is a bit daunting to do this 100%, basic click, 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 click. Be such a, if you can't get it done in 15 minutes, oh, I've spent too much time on it.
so you're
And
talking about the content creation
yeah,
part
the content
and
creation part.
and the
Um,
publishing. Yeah,
Obviously, it's becoming easier now. People are recording shows right on their mobile devices. Stuff like Boss Jock and stuff like that are definitely helping
yeah.
make it easier for people to create the content, and pushing it out. So I don't think that it's going to get much easier from a technical standpoint, just because there's certain things you're going to have to do. And usually the shows that don't put the time in, the technical time, usually don't make it anyway. It's the guys that are using turnkey websites, and they're not building much of their own brand.
Yeah.
Those shows are destined largely not to exist in a couple of years. The failure rate's so high already with content. It's hard work. Doing this stuff is not easy.
Well, and I think you're raising a good point, Todd. Is that it's as this industry progresses, it's going to be more and more difficult to build large shows. I mean, that's always been the case since day one. That the podcasting has created kind of a splintering of interests, right? And that audiences were getting smaller and smaller because they were going after more niche or niche interests, right? But I think we've kind of a little bit pulled back from that. I think Serial's an example of that. That more mainstream content is becoming more accepted now. It's not like the shows that were popular were like shows about Linux or shows about Windows or shows about very specific and very narrow topics. And we're kind of an example of that too, where new media is a fairly broad topic area, but we are very focused on podcasting. But if you think about content in general and what's been successful in large audiences, right? It's been more generalized content, and I think Serial's an example of that. And I think we may be coming into a time when more generalized content is successful again. I know back when I started doing my radio show, my Web Talk Guys radio show, it was more of a variety show. Sure, it was about tech and the web, but I covered a lot of topics from music and TV to what was happening with broadband to talking about computer security and more kind of generalist topics, and versus what we do here, which is typically very focused on podcasting. So, maybe we're coming into a time when kind of we're more like, we're becoming a little bit more like radio and television, where we can start appealing to larger audiences based on broader topics.
But let's also think about what Serial had going for them.
Yeah, well,
They've got PBS background, or not PBS, NPR background.
Well, and Ira Glass, being
Yeah.
behind the scenes on it helps.
So you have this, pre-built contacts within that group to
Yep.
get an incredible amount of press, which,
Yep.
Normally folks don't have those type of contacts.
Yep.
It was highly produced. You look
Yes.
at how many people they have on that team, 7 or something like that,
Yep.
that were doing that show.
Well, it's
So,
the same. It's the same kind of thing, like with the Radio Lab and those. There's huge teams behind.
right.
Even Roman Mars has teams behind him, and I mean a lot of those public radio type produced shows. You have to have multiple producers. You have to have editors. You have to have people that are writing scripts because it's oftentimes all scripted. It's like a television production.
Right. And I think there's going to be the general public is, for a better word, been trained like sheep to consume that content heavily.
Yeah.
Television is a prime example of that. It's entertainment. So people are looking to be entertained. They're not always looking to be informed. So, I think niche shows like this will continue to attract the audience we want it to attract.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to grow a million people listening to the show
Yeah,
either.
exactly. And I think that's the key point here is, and I thought it was really interesting that Serial ended, right?
Right.
I thought that is also kind of a little tone deaf too, right?
Oh, yeah.
You build that kind of following, right? And you build that kind of,
And then you shut them off.
yeah, and then you turn it off. Is like, that's a more traditional media kind of format,
Yeah.
right? It's not what I would consider kind of a pure play podcast model.
That's always puzzled me. I've always said I'm on season 10. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
I'm on season one, going on 10.5 years.
Yeah, exactly. So there's been 10 seasons of Todd, right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
nonstop.
So I don't, I've heard people want to do that with, a variety of shows. I don't quite understand it.
Yeah,
It doesn't make a lot of logical sense to me. I think it's just a gimmick. But for them to shut off Serial, and not say, well, we're going to come back with a new storyline, seems a little odd to me. I don't know why they would proceed like that.
it seems like they
Uh,
would have been like maybe a 2 week break to regroup, retool, and boom, right into the next storyline.
yeah, exactly. Or completely different
Right,
kind of storyline and start building that. Maybe
right.
they have to, like you say, take a month off and retool and restaff, or do all their investigative stuff that they have to do to relaunch a new serial or something.
If I'd have been behind that, Rob, I'd have been like that would have been happening 2 months before the current one ended. When you
Yeah,
have that
there's
kind
no
of,
reason why they couldn't pre-produce a lot of this stuff.
and not only just getting the stuff ready to go, getting
Yeah,
the background. Yeah, I just it baffles me that kind of an audience. Of course, these maybe they're not worried about the money's not a factor. It's the you know, but again, people are. You look at the burnout rate. You go ahead and do 2 shows a week for 10 years.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Why do you think I've taken a few more days off this year? Not necessarily just to prevent myself from burning out. So but again, if you're gonna do this, you've got to be in this thing for the long haul. It's a commitment. It's look at Letterman, look at Jay Leno. How many they're
every
on?
week, every day. Yeah,
Boom, 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 boom. You know,
Uh, those
and
guys are content creators right there, boy.
they obviously have huge staffs behind them that are
Yep.
working that. That's no doubt in my mind, and it has to be in that level. But at the same time, um, I even hear podcasters now hiring personal assistants. That seems a big thing. Is hiring people out of the Philippines to do their video or audio editing. I'm like, if I had to send my video or audio off to the Philippines to have it edited, I would have the editing done in the time it took to upload it.
Yeah.
But some people are more picky about editing. I don't know. I just that to me seems odd too. But
Well, you don't do much post production.
yeah, it's about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do a lot more of that, with the old radio show that I did. It was like yeah, like an hour for every 15 minutes or something like that is what it turned out to be.
Rob, if I had to edit, I would be done. There's no way I would be able to do this. I'd be divorced.
You'd be
Honey, what are you doing? I got another hour of editing to do. I've already been in here 5 hours. No,
Yeah, yeah,
no, no,
exactly.
no. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why people are hiring PAs to get their wives off their backs or significant others.
Yeah.
But going back to where we're going in 15, I just hope the press continues to love podcasting at this point. So with Serial ending, that's going to kind of slow things down because they were driving a lot of the news cycles. I
Yeah.
was actually scheduled to be on television with the NewsHour, and they end up going with, well, actually the segment they did. Um, I understand why they didn't go with me because there was no place for me to fit the commentary I was going to provide into it. But
Well, it was all focused on Serial at that point,
right,
right?
right, yeah. So it's good. It's another piece, but no one's done in the mainstream media. No one's done a real good deep dive and actually reported mostly facts. There's been a lot of you know a lot of interesting information has come out this year. A lot of I mean, we've covered them all here in this show. A lot of laughable moments.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the articles that are being written about the space are, really inaccurate and and not really seeing the big picture. I mean, a lot of the folks writing about the podcast space have not been around it very long,
Right.
to understand context, and but I mean, it's what it is, and the word is getting out. Um, I know that the article that came out in Medium was written by a fellow Matt Hewley, who's been around podcasting for since 2007. I mean, he wrote an article talking about the problems with podcasting are social related. That we should have more,
Social.
yeah, more sharing of clips and also group listening. So
This space is a personal
yeah,
connection. We're talking to you, not to some group.
yeah, it's the whole kind of going back to the 20s when people would sit around a radio, and all as a family they would all listen to audio at the same time.
You
Um,
know what happens in my car when I put a podcast in?
yeah,
The other two are usually plugged into their own device listening to something else, Pandora or something. They're not listening to what Dad's listening to.
no, they want to listen to what they want to listen to. And it's usually music. I mean, if you're talking about
Right,
a younger
right, right,
person,
right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
pretend they don't hear you when you're speaking to them. And
yeah,
that, yeah. So my youngest one knows more about podcasting than the older two do because he doesn't have his own device to plug his ears into. So it's group listening, clip
yeah,
sharing.
yeah. Now, one point that he makes that is probably valid is having like a multi-user podcast capability, a podcast app capability where you can have multiple accounts. That's I'm not sure what the real use case
So
is in some ways.
what's the need there? I guess I don't understand that. What's the point he's trying to make?
I think it would be so. Let's play out a scenario. So let's say in a car, right?
Yep,
So you have a car app that has podcasts,
yep.
and you get in and out of different people drive the car. So say
Oh, okay.
I mean, you drive it and your wife drives it, and maybe they have, between the two of you, you
Yep,
have separate subscriptions.
yep.
So somehow the car recognizes that when you get in the car, it pulls up
Uh,
your playlist or your subscription list versus, you know, um, always having the same one up there for everyone who gets in the car.
The cars are almost there. The new cars are almost there doing that. My car, even today, if my wife's driving, it recognizes her Bluetooth and her
Does it? Okay.
phone list and everything. And then when I'm in, it recognizes mine. If we're both in the vehicle, it fights. It basically,
Yeah.
whoever, I think it takes the first one in the list. But um,
Well, it should give you the option to
yeah, I
select
think so. It does.
which source.
But
Uh,
and I think, and again, even when and it's probably way in your car. My wife listens to Japanese channels. I listen to podcasts, so the she does make the change, and I make the change to listen via Bluetooth, or she actually listens to a AM Japanese station. But sometimes I don't know.
yeah.
But does your wife listen to the same stuff you do?
No.
No. So it's usually in most families there's with two-car families, most people are in that situation where you take yours and she takes hers, so it's not necessarily an issue.
Yeah.
But I don't
So
know.
yeah, group listening, I don't see has really any legs at all.
Yeah, it doesn't have an effect. Because I still listen to what I want to listen to, even if I'm the
Uh,
passenger. Because if I'm not liking what I'm hearing, I plug in too.
yep. And he also makes mention about how he likes to use SoundCloud, and wishes more podcasters would use SoundCloud.
But why? It's just a player on a page.
I know. Yeah.
Is he talking about the app or the? He must be talking about the app.
It's it gets back to that ease of play issue. He's not
Uh,
really clear in the article of really why
okay.
um, that's such a great experience. Um,
It,
it,
I think.
yeah, he talks about sampling of content as part of it,
Okay.
and I can see some value there. I mean, but I, I'm not quite sure what the difference is between just clicking to play the first episode and
Right.
sampling is. It could sampling be some.
Is he talking?
Com-
Is he trying to discover new content? Is that what he's?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of what he's
Yeah.
doing here, and I've thought that a lot. I mean, over the years that some easier way to get a sample of what the content is quickly. Like
Yep.
maybe at the top of every list of podcasts. I mean, there's some sort of a compilation episode that in 30 seconds completely explains what the show's about and gives some audio samples and
Well,
um,
you can do that. There
yeah.
is the function to be able to. Apple allows you to do that, to be able to
Hmm.
set as episode number one is, and it will always stay as episode number one is your intro episode.
Hmm.
And you can actually have it in your RSS feed so that it sits there and it's the default, it's the default one. But I think that is based on the infrastructure that we've seen, really iTunes centric. It's not what the rest of the space is depending upon.
Yeah, but I can see some
Yeah.
advantages to maybe expanding that capability. I mean, it was around for music. That 15 or 30-second sample
Yep.
was always there, and and I think a lot of people, it's a lot to expect someone to engage with a subscription in a new series, um, just off of stumbling across
Right.
something. I
Right.
mean, as we both know, most of content is discovered through word of mouth.
Yep.
People telling someone that, oh, I listened to this show and it's really, really great. And I think that was a lot of what propelled the success of Serial too.
So the message I gave everyone before they went off for Christmas was make sure you tell all your friends, all your relatives, everyone there about my show. Make sure you tell them you're listening and tell them how to subscribe. Take the phone and subscribe them if you need to. So I
Yeah.
was, very, put that plea out to the audience because I know this is such an important growth time. January is usually a big month for growth.
Yeah.
And so that was the message, and that would be the message I put out Monday night. As you're going to events, you're going to New Year's parties, and you're sitting around talking. What are you doing? You're listening to this show, and you like it because, and you should
Yeah.
give it a listen. That's the, and anyone's listening to this, you should do that as well.
It's not going to appeal to everyone,
No,
but if
no,
you're involved in this space,
yeah,
we're heavily involved in the New Media Expo, and I think
yeah.
going forward, as we get closer to that event, we're going to be bringing people on that are going to be talking about that event and what's happening at that event, and so we are going to be, I think, a good place to hear about what's happening in the space.
So just speaking of the New Media Expo, met with Rick and his team. What day was it? Monday, I think. Pretty early my time,
Hmm.
and talked about the podcast awards in depth with them. Went through the process one more time. So they've got some engaged. They're moving forward over there very quickly now. So hopefully they'll be ready to go into nomination mode here in about 18 days or so, 19 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so they may move the timeline back. They think they can get the trophies faster, so they may not. They're going to decide on a nomination open date here shortly, but they think they can get them faster than I could in 3 weeks. So
April's coming fast, isn't it?
it's coming fast. Yeah, the whole process, is a 6 week deal. It's a 6 week run, almost 6.5 weeks to get through it all. So whenever they start the clock, they'll be under the gun to meet all those hurdles. I don't think they realize how much work.
Not sure that they knew what they signed up for. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think they did, but it's just like you mean I have to we got to find 50 listeners to help review. I'm like, well, if you choose to have the awards done the same way this year, yes.
Yeah.
You don't have 50 listeners for us? No, I cut my people loose. I'll see what I can do. But Just so everyone does know, we want you to get signed up and come out to the New Media Expo, and it's going to be a great event. And you can sign up at NMX Live. And when you buy your ticket, use the promo code New Media. That'll get you a discount on it. But we want you to join Rob and I there. Rob and I will, of course, be doing several events, I think, at this point. And again, you're going to get informed. You're going to make connections. You're going to meet fellow podcasters and you hear from some high-profile keynoters. It should be a really great event at nmxlive.com is where you want to go to get your tickets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting event.
Especially it's. I think if you've never been before, you say, "Why do I need to go for 4 days?" You're not going to see it all in 4 days.
No.
As a matter of fact, I was talking with my team again, and you're going to need some extra help at the booth because I'm going to want to get out and meet some of the folks I normally meet at NAB. In one aspect, I love that it's happening at the same time. At the other point, I forgot that yeah, we have a booth at this event. That doesn't mean I can go roam a lot. So
Well, if you
yeah,
bring some more help, you might be able
yeah,
to do that, right?
yeah. We might be able to get out some more, but typically people want to come see either Angelo or I, and it's almost going to have to do the time, so it's okay.
Sure.
So take one for the team.
Exactly.
But there's a lot. I mean, with the you're going to go through the new media show, and then you're going to be like, I mean, I've got like 80 football fields of stuff I can go through with NAB, and literally it's like 80 football fields worth of content.
Well, and we're going to be doing one of these shows,
Right.
The new media show at the event. So we're going to be up on stage somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where yet.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, but we'll bring on some interesting guests to talk about the stuff that's going on. I think April will be an interesting time to talk about podcasting. I'm curious to see what's next.
And I think by then maybe the NAB will have the first document out. IAB.
Yeah.
We'll have the first document out by then, I think. We'll see how the next meeting goes. I think that next meeting is actually happening when I'm in Vegas. But
shouldn't we be hearing more about the Electronic Frontier Foundation's case with personal audio by then?
They had their hearing, but I didn't hear how the hearing went. Did you?
I have not.
So they had their arbitration or whatever that meeting was that they have to have. I would expect we're supposed to hear an announcement very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm going to their site right now just to
see what the timeline is on that. It's gonna be an interesting. I think we all got our fingers crossed here.
Yeah. So I don't see any updates on the Electronic Frontier Foundation's website.
Yeah, I know they had the hearing, but I didn't know. I don't know if there was no reporters in the room or if it was private, and I don't know. It just
okay. It says, it says here, the USPTO to rule on podcasting troll. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has decided to throw its weight into the situation, stating its intention to argue the Patent Trademark Office on December 17th.
Right, which happened.
Yeah. So it says here, the hearing will be open to the public, and the EFF plans to argue personalities patents. So it looks like it's already happened.
Yeah, it happened. And then there's a specific timeline the USPTO has in order to
rule.
Right. And this is the final deal. This next announcement will be whether it's good or bad or thrown out or segments stripped away or...
Yeah, because if it can be partially dismantled, then the personal audio doesn't really have a go-forward capability. But yeah, it doesn't appear that there's been a final ruling that's come down on it yet.
There is a timeline that they have to go by, and I don't know if it's 30 days, but yeah, we should know something at that point for sure. Hopefully, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if that's gonna be that quick, but that's my understanding was it wasn't supposed to be a long time. But everything's done. Everything is all their appeals and cross objections and all because this process had like a 10-step and very strict timelines that had to be met,
Yeah.
wickets they had to fall into. So
So it, I mean, it was open to the public, so people were there
yeah,
able to see what happened. It
but
just,
I haven't found no reporting on it.
yeah, just because maybe there wasn't anything to report.
Well,
It was just probably both sides
yeah,
argued their case.
yeah, but it'd been nice to hear the tack one took over the other.
Yeah.
You know, so but
Yeah.
but anyway, I guess we'll continue to watch. Rob, it's hard, and I've been asked to make predictions before. What do you think? Where do you think is going to go in 15? Besides the mainstream media folks,
Um,
potentially coming in and being advertisers.
I don't realistically think that there's going to be any big breakthroughs. I think it's just going to be a steady climb. Um, but I am concerned about audience growth, just in a general sense, and I think we've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of new content come into the space, which is good. Content tends to lead audience growth, but I also don't get a sense that we as an industry we know what's going on in our industry yet. I think that's another big challenge. I think for the IAB is to collate industry information about how big the space is, what's going on, what's the revenues, what's the activity in the space. I think that's before you can even have
yeah,
any standards around monetization. I think you have to have some sort of a collation of industry data, right? I would hope in 2015 we can obtain that somehow. All the companies cooperate with each other and share information. We get Apple, maybe even get really encourage Apple to participate in this to really build something more significant. That would be my wish. I don't know that that's realistic. And I think cars are going to become a bigger part of this puzzle in 2015.
I think
I think,
the cars thing's going to grow.
yeah,
It's as and obviously how many millions of cars we have on the road today, as cars are retired,
yeah,
and people go out and buy. It depends on what if they're buying new or used. Even over used cars or some of the used cars have some of the smart stuff in it. So Ford really led the way
yeah.
on the in car dash stuff, and they probably has as big a head start on anybody from an entertainment standpoint. But
Yeah.
it's just going to it'll be interesting to see where it leads. But I think really, Rob, ultimately the car is going to be tied to this. This is the best.
Yes, it will. Though I've seen research on in-car solutions that was done by Microsoft a couple of years ago, and it basically shows that when you have an integrated dash experience,
It's used
that
more.
that it may connect to the phone or it may not. It depends on what the car is capable of doing and so more high-end vehicles will have direct 4G connections, and that experience will be um, really groundbreaking for people that have it because they're not going to be dependent on their phones anymore. They're not going to have to lift their phone up and connect it or do anything with their phone. It's all going to be right there on their dash, and it's going to be a lot faster, a lot more convenient, right? There's going to be more capabilities that will be in the car that you won't have to manage through your phone. You may get the data connection through your phone, but I don't believe that you're going to have to pick up your phone and do anything. And I don't know if this next year is going to have us have a real contextual experience in the car where you get in the car and the car knows what you listen to and what you want to do because it's predicting, that whole big data kind of learning about your interests and delivering things to you when wherever you are, what you're doing, and it knows those things and it makes suggestions to you. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think that's coming, but I do believe that the car is key to the growth of this, and I also believe Android. So I think those are the big targets, and I know a lot of the big music services and Stitcher and Spotify and all these guys, Deezer, are all looking at the car. I mean, they're all integrating their app experiences in vehicles
But
because they see that consumer research too.
here's the Achilles heel, though. My data expenses have spiraled out of control. I mean, it is insane. I don't even want to think about it, to be quite honest with you, on each month on mobile data, and just the mobile data alone has gotten insane.
So, how
And
much are you signed up for currently?
on my MiFi and iPad, I have 12 gigs,
Okay.
and on my iPhone, I have a shared plan because it's a business account. I have 5 other people that share 20.
Oh, wow.
So this is not the problem. I'm not impacting this one so much, but my MiFi and iPad, I'm generally running out. But I'm
Where are
also,
you using your MiFi where you're running out all the time?
I because of the traffic situation here in Hawaii, I'm spending
Oh, in the car.
a lot of
Okay.
time in the car.
Yep.
So here's my, and I, I've always kind of laughed. People said, "Oh, I don't want to play the podcast because it's going to impact my data plan." So here's the thing that we have to can remember as podcasters. We need to belay that impact by reminding them they don't have to stream it. They can still download when they're at home, and they can still play, not have a bandwidth impact when they're in the car. If we need to remember to promote that, because I don't know about you, Rob. I don't want to pay for another mobile plan for my vehicle. I
Yeah.
just don't. And I
Yep.
think most Americans, frankly, can't afford it.
Yeah.
Another $30 a month or 20 or whatever, and you're going to give you a couple of gigs, and then
I
you run.
don't think that's going to be what happens, Todd. I think what I've heard is going to likely happen is when you buy a new car, it's going to come with the data plan built into the car as part of the purchase.
Okay, but still, you're not going to get
Yeah.
unlimited.
No,
A
no,
guy
that's
like me is
exactly
going to
right.
run out.
And then at some point, your plan that you have with AT&T or whatever is going to have to be what takes over, right?
Right. So again, you're going to be
Yep.
you've got another interconnect that's going to be eating away
At your
at your
data. That's right.
data. The guy,
But
bro, you can go up to 12 gig. That's only an extra, and tether device. It's only an extra 10.
but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't eat up more than what you were doing before. It should be kind of more of a replacement. I mean, unless you're
Right,
consuming more content in the car, it should just swap, right? It should
right.
be like, well, I used to pull that off my phone or my MiFi. Now it's pulling off of
But
mine.
I think you and I are techies. We use a lot of data. We
Yeah.
expect to, but I think the average folks don't. I think the
Hmm.
average folks are they get like because it's expensive. So
Yeah.
if you're a family and you've got 3, 4, 5 people on there, my wife has 3 phones. They got 10 gigs between the 3, and they watch it heavily. I mean, I'm hearing them. Hey, my wife is busting my daughter. Hey, you're up to 3.5. What you doing? You're over your allotment, and we're close to the. I'm sure this discussion goes on in every family,
Yeah.
and you got one kid listening to Pandora, another kid listening to whatever, maybe playing a YouTube video. Matter of fact, we've banned playing videos in the vehicle because we know it eats so much bandwidth. Another person, so you got 3 people listening to 3 different things, or 4, depending on how many people are in your car,
Yeah.
on the same data plan. This is where we actually can still be a preferred media choice, in that you can still, when you're at home, this content's already DVR'd into, it's baked in to be able to be downloaded. You don't,
Yeah.
we got to remember to promote that. And it's still the number one way podcasts are listened to today.
Yeah. That's right. It is. And
So I
Well, I
understand
think
the
it's
mobile experience is going to change that, but
yeah,
I want the car to park in the parking lot and hook into my Wi-Fi and preload.
sure.
Pre
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. Um, One thing too that contributes to I think the issue is the wide variety of bit rates that
Right.
podcasters use in their podcasts
Oh
too.
yeah.
I mean, I see that all the time myself. I mean, some shows are 64K, other shows are 256. I've even heard podcasts that are 320.
Yeah. I had a guy
Um,
complaining about space, and he says, I only do a 20-minute show 3 times a month, and I'm like, you got big enough data plan. And I looked at his show, and it was like, yeah, 256. I'm like, did you know there's another encoding setting that you could go down to
you probably didn't even
64?
think about it.
And they didn't even know.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's like, oh. He said, I've actually got too big of a data plan now.
yeah. Downgrade me, Todd. Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah, I found that probably the ideal bit rate's been 96K.
yeah, I've been at 128 for a while. Um, but yeah, 96 is pretty good.
Yeah,
64 is a little too low, but
yeah. I mean, I think that 128 is okay. I mean, it's probably it depends on what you're doing in your show. I think
yeah.
um, if it's good, but I don't hear much of a difference between 96 and 128.
Yeah, it's hard to tell
Yeah, yeah.
unless you're wearing some really super expensive headset, or most people are just using cheap 9.99
And it depends on what the
earbuds.
quality of
Right.
the original file is too. I
Yeah.
mean, that's always a big factor. I always tell podcasters too that if you're doing any kind of re-encoding, right, which I'm involved in to some extent, you have to have a higher bit rate on your original file than
Right.
you don't want to re-encode something at the same level or lower. Yeah, it's always better to have more data than less.
Yeah, the it's the same thing with video too. It's like the media file that the TriCaster's recording right now will be about for this 90-minute show will be about 100 gigs. And
Yeah,
then after that gets edited, that goes down and will be about an 800 meg file. So the master starts out beautiful, and then you compress the living crap out of it.
yeah, exactly. Get it down to a usable size. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
can't believe it. We're almost here in an hour and a half.
Yep.
In fact, we are.
Yep.
So anyway, we kind of been all over the place today, but yeah, it's been a fun 2014. We've had a great year. Can't complain. 2015, I'm hoping will be even better. So,
Yeah, I hope so too.
and I think looking at the schedule, just for everyone that's here, I'm gone the next 2 weekends. I am leaving for Vegas on Wednesday night. My God, it's just
Okay.
creeping upon me so fast. Actually,
Yep.
spending New Year's at 25,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, so I will maybe have a champagne or glass of water at that time. Who
There you
knows?
go.
But be in Vegas all the way through Sunday the 11th, and then come back and start a regular week. So unless you want to do a solo one, Rob, we're off the next 2 weeks.
Okay. No, I probably won't do a solo one.
And but if you guys got thoughts on who you want us to have on in the new year, I know you've got a short list, Rob, of some people that you've really been trying to get. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to invite. Yeah, I did an article in Pottertainment this month
Uh-huh.
about new companies in the space. I've had a couple. I have one or two of those new companies on the show,
Okay.
but I'm going to try and make the more complete the rounds on that.
Yeah.
So because there's new platforms and new companies that are bringing monetization to podcasting
Yeah.
that I'm going to try and bring on.
And and the thing I'm worried about some of those companies is do they really understand that the majority of shows are not big? Do they get that?
Well, I think as you back up and you look at the big picture, all those companies are coming out of the streaming radio side, and that's how they're looking at it. So This is looking at streaming radio and saying, okay, this is on demand, right?
Right.
They're not going to necessarily look at it as pure podcasting. What they're
Yeah.
looking at it as on demand audio.
Right.
So, and I think that's a really important distinction as we talk to these companies of how they're approaching it. We approach it from a podcasting perspective, but
Yep.
they're not quite approaching it that
Yeah.
in that way. So,
It's still typically on demand. You're on demand downloading it, or you're on demand listening to it. It's
yeah, exactly.
but the but
So
the but the but the listening part may not happen until later.
but it's also it's a little more fundamental than that. It's coming from a radio perspective,
Yeah.
um, coming into this space too, and I think there's some kind of uh, cultural differences and
Oh
philosophy
yeah.
differences that exist when that happens, right?
Oh yeah. That's for
And
sure.
so we definitely have, there's some kind of some commingling and partnership building and understanding building that needs to happen at this stage in the industry
Right.
as that starts to happen more.
All right. Well,
Um,
it'd be fun then to talk to these folks. They
yeah.
can
Well, we've
educate.
had,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think we've had one on, we had Rocky from
Yeah.
AdsWiz,
Yeah.
but there's a couple others, one, I'm going to bring on a person from White Orbit, which probably nobody knows about.
And they actually acquired. They made their announcement.
Castfire,
Castfire. Yeah.
which was one of the early podcasting platforms
Yeah.
back pretty much in the same time frame as Libsyn.
Yeah.
But they kind of diverged off into video more, and their kind of podcasting solutions was a little bit is a little behind the times. But that's part of what they're working on is trying to upgrade it.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, I guess it's gonna be a good year. I hope you guys have if you're a podcaster out there, don't let up this season. Keep on cranking them out because the first 3 weeks in January, that's heavy growth time, and capture all those folks that just got new devices. Remind them to subscribe, and I've been doing that on a regular basis on my Facebook page, Twitter, and everywhere else to say, hey, you got that new device.
Yeah.
Either resubscribe or if you're brand new, subscribe. And a lot of people getting smartphones for the first time, believe it or not, and you definitely want to capture that group to your best of your ability. But anyway, Todd or Rob at newmediashow.com is the email address. You can blast us anytime. And you can find me on Twitter at Geek News. Rob, your Twitter is
At Rob Greenlee, and that's with two E's. It's pretty easy. And yeah.
So look forward to talking to you in the new year, Rob. Have a happy new year and be safe out there. And everyone else, if you are going to have a few cocktails on New Year's Eve, make sure you use a designated driver. We want you all back here.
So we're back on the air on the 17th of January, right?
It would be, yes, on the 17th. We'll be back.
Yes.
2 weeks
Okay.
off. All right, everybody.
Good.
We'll see you
All
next.
right.
We'll see you next time. Everyone, take care.
Bye.
Aloha. And those of you on YouTube, got to push the right button. See you later, YouTube. Oh, we had quite a few people on the stream.